Nigerian youth have shown resilience in their efforts to bring about the desired change through the hashtag END SARS Protests, and the struggle has led to the dissolution of the controversial Special Anti-Robbery Squad. The protesters' 5-point demands to ensure that concrete steps are taken to address their grievances have evolved into 7 demands currently trending with the hashtag 747. And here's what the hashtag 747 is all about. Under the institutional reforms, which is security, the protesters want the release of arrested protesters, compensation of families of victims, investigation and prosecution of all reports of misconduct, as well as prescription of SARS and a review of the welfare of police to be implemented immediately. And on the cost of governance, the youth say, quote, "We have watched over the years the waste associated with governing Nigeria. We have noted the duplication and unprofessionalism in the civil service and across all strata." On constitutional reforms, they allege that there had been several constitutional reviews where the youth were obviously absent, and that the time has come for all informed and progressive participation by the youth. In education reforms, the youth are demanding that a state of emergency is declared in the education sector, and they want an increase in the budgetary allocation to the educational sector by 50%. And in health reforms, they demand that a state of emergency is declared in the health sector and an increase in the budgetary allocation to the health sector by 50% as well. On youth affairs reforms, the protesters demand that a state of emergency be declared in the Ministry of Youth and Sports, Ministry of Science and Technology, and Ministry of National Planning. And on public office reforms, the protesters are demanding the Code of Conduct reforms for all elected public office holders to have themselves and their children use public schools and public hospitals only. And these are some of their demands. Let's discuss this now. With me in the studio is lawyer and social development advocate Fred Nzako. Thank you so much for joining us at this point in time. I'm sure as an ardent observer of all the happenings circulating around hashtag END SARS, which has of course now evolved to, other demands. What do you make of the trend?
Thank you for having me this morning, and I say good morning to our dear viewers wherever they are, and good morning to our youth where they are mounting legitimate protests, where they are mounting well-deserved and long overdue and long expected protests. As a matter of fact, all they are asking for are all that the government themselves have promised sometime or the other along the line, either during process of campaigns or during any maybe town hall meetings and all manner of gatherings where government officials themselves have made promises to have the status quo changed and ensure that Nigeria runs along the line of development. So the youths are really not asking for too much. They're asking that government should implement their promises. They're asking that government should implement those policies that will move Nigeria forward. They're asking that Nigeria begins to run as a country. They're asking that all the major reforms that we have been talking about over the years should be brought to bear in the affairs of this nation. So I expected government to be very proactive in some of these issues. And one thing I must sound a note of warning is that this is not targeted at a particular government. This is long time in coming. That day we celebrated 60 years, and that 60 years was 60 years of tardiness, 60 years of lack of growth, 60 years of lack of human resource development. And if you see the nature of these protests, you will very easily see that it is not the usual protest. This is a digital protest by digital age, by digital children, by youth who now want to assert that truly they are leaders of tomorrow. And then that tomorrow must not remain indefinite. That tomorrow must come one day, and that tomorrow has come.
And this protest now in its second week, but though the government has responded at certain points, there seems to be the body language, subtle or otherwise, that they've had enough. And now they're asking the youth now to relax on their gains.
With all due respect, government has not responded. Government has not responded. What has government done? Government has only changed the name of SARS to SWAT. Is that the response? And the youth said, we don't want even the SWAT. And then if you see the quickness of that change, it was as if they had it on the shelf. It was kept on the shelf already and waiting for a time like this to bring it down. And what is SWAT? To start with, SWAT is not indigenous. It was borrowed from America. If we continue to borrow things, even nomenclature from America, why can't we borrow the true fiscal federalism of America and restructure this country as a whole and get every component part of Nigeria to move on the line of development? As a matter of fact, if you look at all the demands of the youth, this is 7 for 7. By the end of today, it may increase to 10. By the next week, it may increase to 20. And if you look at the whole gamut of their demands, everything rises and falls with restructuring Nigeria towards development.
And the protests are not about one person.
It is not.
They're not even about the youth.
There is no anchor person
absolutely.
in this process. That tells you that even when you talk about the youth, it has become everybody. Every agitated Nigerian has become a member of the protesting group. Yes, it was anchored and originated by the youth, but now what is happening is that almost every Nigerian that is agitated by what is going on, by the lack of development, lack of employment, lack of healthcare, lack of good education, lack of institutional reform, all those things that have been worrying Nigerians are all embarked into one protest note.
And talking about reforms now,
Yes.
so the government has also, responded, talking about, how do you want these reforms? The youth are demanding an immediate reforms in various sectors, and understandably so. But the argument for the government is these things cannot happen overnight. There must be a process, and the youth should, pander to that. Do you buy that?
That's a very good question, my dear sister. What I expected government to do, what government is doing is that they are asking people, stop protest. Let us go and start seeing what you are saying. I expected government to have by now put together a committee of a think tank group that will begin to immediately advise government on what to do. You don't need to ask. All these things can be done pari passu, all at the same time. While the protest is going on, government begin to put policies and measures in place so that when the people who are protesting will now see, you think they are not listening, they are listening, they are watching, they are looking at government, and government is not doing anything, so the protest continues. The very moment government begins to do something concrete and tangible about addressing the issues raised by the protesters will back down. And until government does that, I don't see this protest backing down. The whole world is now interested in Nigeria. We have a responsibility to show that we are a responsible country, that our independence is not a fluke, that we are able to take care of our issues.
And the impact, look at what happened on Sunday now in many parts of Lagos, Ikorodu, what have been known as, suburbs. No area seems to be immune now. Even outside Lagos, we are also saying
no area can be immune.
But a concern also is the angle of violence. If the government, see what happened in Osun State, see what's happened in Lagos and in Abuja, but the government is exonerating itself. Now, the police, there was nobody saying the police actually perpetrated these acts. Many people use the label of thugs. How much of a worry is that for you? You've been monitoring protests even before now,
yes.
and look at what we're seeing.
Everybody who can advise this government should tell this government to tread very cautiously. The youth have essentially been very peaceful. They have been intelligent enough. They have handled this protest in a very wonderful manner. It is not for government to go and rout them and disturb the peace of the protest, because the government is becoming desperate. In its desperation, government is looking for all manner of ways to break the protest, and they have not succeeded. The very best thing, channel that energy into the reforms and addressing the issues that the youth are asking for. Don't use that energy to begin to want to cow down the protest. Right. Channel the energy into those reforms. And once you have started, the protesters will know that you have really started in earnest.